Mr. Barnett, y'all ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
All right, Solicitor, call your case.
Your Honor, this state versus Caleb Kennedy. He is charged with felony DUI with death. And I believe this is Mr. Beasley's motion, so I defer to him in the court. And I'd like to respond after he speaks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Your Honor, we were actually recently in front of Judge Miller probably 2 weeks ago on this bond hearing. And Judge Miller continued it because he wanted to get the medical records to see what was in Mr. Kennedy's system because the only evidence at the scene was that Mr. Kennedy had allegedly told police officers that.
Hold on a minute. Look, we're getting to start of the cart before the horse. I don't know anything about this case. What's before me is for a bond hearing. So I'm going to go back to the solicitor. And solicitor, tell me what Mr. Kennedy is charged with. Give me a factual basis for the charges, any prior criminal record, and where we stand as far as bond. Then I'll hear from Mr. Beasley, and I'll come back to you after that.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just give you some background on this, Your Honor. There was a bond hearing. Let me go through the facts real quick with you, then go through the history of it, Your Honor. This occurred on February 8th, 2022, Your Honor. Mr. Kennedy was still occupant of a driver, a 2011 Ford F-150, Your Honor. He drove down Southport Road in Spartanburg County towards Packlet, Your Honor. He had been to a Walmart there. He later told law enforcement he took a hit from a vape pen. He told them that he was basically tripping out, that he didn't know where he was. Mr. Parris lives well off the road, Your Honor. There's the BASF plant there, Your Honor. Somehow Mr. Kennedy took a left there, went down, and I've got a video I'll be glad to show the court of the in-car video, and I'll probably show that based because they claim we have no evidence. We have plenty of evidence.
We're not here to.
I know we're not here to
try the case, and certainly the rules of evidence don't apply. But I do want to hear a factual basis, and then.
Yes, sir. But let me explain something. I know you were in the first two bond hearings. I'd like to have a chance to respond to the information that was given those bond hearings also. Because like I said, he's asked for an emergency bond hearing, which I don't think is proper in this situation.
All right, hold on just a second. Let me be sure I know where we are procedurally. Was he denied bond by magistrate?
Yes, sir.
And has he been in front of a circuit judge since then?
Yes, sir. And he continued it with the SLED toxicology results.
So he went in front of Judge Miller to review I assume bond must have been denied by the magistrate.
Yes, sir, it was.
And so Judge Miller did not rule.
He did not rule. He said, I'm going to continue it until the SLED results come back.
Yeah, I'm still getting echoing. I don't know whether it's media or somebody. You've got what that generally means is somebody's got a laptop or a device where you're not muted. And if you're muted, you can still hear me generally, and everybody else, but it cuts down on the background. So here's what I'd like to do is I want to treat this like a normal bond hearing where bond has been denied. So just give me a factual basis for the charges, what happened, any prior record, the position of the state, and I'll be glad to hear from any victims in the case. Then I'll hear from Mr. Beasley, and if we need to come back to the state solicitor, we'll do that. So just in my mind, I don't know anything about this case, and so let's just treat it as this is the first time Judge Hall has heard anything, and this is a motion for a circuit judge to set bond. So give me a factual basis for the charges again.
Yes, sir. Starting back is February 8th of this year, Your Honor.
I think I've cut mine. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Kennedy was driving a 2011 Ford F-150, Your Honor. Basically, he had been at the Walmart at Cedar Springs here in Spartanburg County, Your Honor. And there he later told law enforcement he took a hit from a vape pen. After he took the hit of that vape pen, started driving, he started tripping. It felt like he was just out of his body from that standpoint. Didn't know where he was or anything. He got lost, went down Southport Road. Mr. Paris lives on West Murph Road in Spartanburg County, Your Honor. It's a one-lane, basically a gravel road. Went down there, and I'd like to be able to show you a video, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. It's,
Let me give the big picture and we can come back to the video.
okay, thank you, Your Honor. Basically, it goes down this one-lane road. There's two houses on it, and the first house, basically, you kind of drive right and kind of forks like this. He went down to the left, kept going, goes around a curve, goes all the way down the hill. He goes to where Mr. Paris's house is. The road would continue. There's a fence or actually a gate that blocks it off down there. It used to be a through road, I guess, years ago, but it is not now. He takes a right, goes on to Mr. Paris's driveway. His driveway is 175 yards. There's boats, there's different items there on the side. The reason I mention that to you is for him to take that turn, you have to do it at a fairly slow speed. He picked up speed going through the driveway, had to. Mr. Paris was actually going back to work. He just had lunch. His house is right there. Was on his phone talking to his best friend. And then he gets hit. And the best friend actually calls his family and says, I've lost him. I don't know, something's happened. They go out. He had actually ran the truck over Mr. Paris. Mr. Paris was knocked. He was actually in the front of his, I call it, it's not a garage. It's actually a work area. It's like a 60 by 24 foot building. He runs over him, goes through, knocks him into, goes into the garage, goes through the whole building, hits a huge piece of machinery on the back that actually stopped him from going through the back of the building. And that building, what he does, he uses that to cut metal. He worked on boats. Mr. Paris did. He worked for Harris Teeter, things like that. And he was severely hurt. He later died at the hospital. Mr. Paris did. Both his wife and daughter came out to check on him. They did find Mr. Paris holding him, but they kept talking to him. Basically, he never called 911. Basically, they said he was very dazed looking at that time. Obviously, they're going to take care of Mr. Paris. Highway Patrol came up later, Your Honor. I'll be glad to show that part of it. He admits that he was under the influence of something, basically, and he appears to be under the influence of thing when you hear what he's saying and talking to Highway Patrol and the EMS at that time, Your Honor. He was later taken to the hospital, Your Honor. A search warrant was obtained. They actually obtained a blood sample that's been sent to SLED. It's like I told Judge Miller, it takes 1 to 2 months usually to test these things from there. In the meanwhile, Judge Miller was sent a copy of the medical records and drug report regional. That's not what he asked for. And the regional test is not a complete drug screen by any means. It's the screen. That's all it is, to give the idea to medical people what they're dealing with. He did test positive for marijuana in that drug screen from what I've been provided. SLED is testing for other drugs. In the medical records I was given, he admitted taking synthetic marijuana, K2, as well as marijuana. Well, that's a separate test altogether. SLED usually does not test for that. That's going to be independently tested from that standpoint. Also, at the last bond hearing, Mr. Beasley talked about him using Prozac. That's verified by the medical records that he was given Prozac, that his dose was doubled before this occurred. So apparently he's on Prozac. That's another thing that's not generally tested by SLED. So SLED's having that tested also. So, well, obviously what I'm asking the court to do is Judge Miller wanted to wait until the toxicology reports came back from SLED. We can go back to the bond hearing if we need to hear that. But that's what I asked this court to do, wait until SLED results come back, and then we'll have a better idea what we're dealing with.
All right.
I do have family members here, Your Honor. I do have to like to address the court at the appropriate time. He does not have a prior record, Your Honor. Let to answer your question on that.
He's been in jail since when?
February 9th, Your Honor. Or possibly even February 8th. I don't know exactly when the jail. We had the bond hearing the next day.
All right, then let me hear. I'll be glad to hear from the victim's family.
Your Honor, do you want them to come up here to the table?
Yeah, let's.
Or would you rather do it here on the WebEx?
They can, I don't know how y'all normally do that. I'm happy of them to just stand right here between the tables and address the court.
And Your Honor, I can have them sit right here, Your Honor, if that's okay.
Yeah, whatever, however they're comfortable.
And Your Honor, before they sit down, I want all the other members to have.
All right, thank you. Thank y'all for being here.
And Your Honor, if I can hand up a picture, I'm sure this is
All right.
Larry Bear.
Let me ask, Judge Miller had the bond hearing. He continued it pending drug reports. What drug reports have been generated since Judge Miller had?
You're on. Yeah, I emailed you, Judge, the drug results from the hospital. Because he's a minor, the parents were able to go to the hospital immediately after the bond hearing a couple weeks ago and get the medical records.
All right, I'll hear from you, and you can
Okay.
fill me in on the drug report. And just that
Okay.
was my question. All right,
Okay.
let's hear from the victim or Mr. Slipper Barnett.
I'd like to take this, I'd like to have handed a picture of Larry Bear up the arm. His wife and daughter like to.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. If you'd tell me your name.
Donna Paris.
Yes, Miss Paris.
Judge Hall, I'm here to request that you deny this bond. Because the only reason we're here is because this man made a conscious decision to put something into his body and then consciously got into a vehicle knowing he didn't need to be driving. He came down a dead-end road and came into my driveway. And my husband was standing in front of his shop to go to work like he does every day. And I know he was standing in front of his shop because when we got out there, one boot was outside, his cell phone was outside, his hat and his reading glasses were outside the shop. But him and this guy and his truck were on the inside of the shop. And the door was all mangled and we didn't have a clue what had happened. So my daughter Kelsey got into him. She called 911. And I even asked him what happened, and all he could do is look at me with a blank stare and say, I don't know. And he killed my husband. And I don't think he should be allowed to get out and take a chance of doing it to somebody else. It's just not right. I mean, he made a conscious decision to drive that truck in the condition he was in. And Larry doesn't have an option to come home and spend time with his family and sleep in his own bed. And he didn't do anything wrong, and we didn't.
All right. Thank you, Miss.
Ask you to deny bond, please.
Thank you, Miss Paris. Yes, ma'am. If you would tell me your name.
My name is Kelsey Harvell, and I'm Larry's daughter.
Yes, Miss Harvell.
For a month now, I've laid down at night and closed my eyes only to see and hear the same things over and over again. My daddy laying in his own shop, moaning, groaning, and hollering with a complete stranger. A stranger that was not calling 911 or even calling for help. Just sitting there with a blank look on his face. Thank goodness me and my mama were home. I see my daddy's hazel eyes and wrinkles on his face. I hear my screams begging for him to look at me and stay awake. I hear the firefighters cutting the door to get in there to him. I hear the surgeon telling us he's not going to survive. I see the bloody footprints coming from the room he was in at the hospital. I hear my mama begging and pleading with God to save him. I see my daddy laying there in the hospital bed, dead, with tubes coming out of his mouth. I see his 73-year-old father sitting beside him, holding his hand and sobbing. I see my mama kissing her husband of 35 years on the forehead for the last time. So if I have to relive that every day for the rest of my life, please explain to me how he has the opportunity to go home. And please explain to me how someone with a conscience could ever even defend him. I'm 25 years old and I have to live the rest of my life without my daddy. This shouldn't even be an option. Nothing has changed between February 8th and today, so why are we even here? Why am I having to vouch for my daddy? There's no question to what he did. He killed my dad, point blank, period. And now there's a chance that he gets to go home to his family and sleep in his bed. That's absolutely infuriating. I sure do wish I could pay a little bit of money, or a lot of money for that matter, to have my daddy back, but I can't. That's not possible because of something he did. Not me, not my mom, not my husband, not anybody sitting back here. Him. And surely not my dad. My dad didn't do it. He was just going to work. He should have to sit there until everything comes back, just like the last judge requested. We request that bond be denied.
All right, thank you. Anything else from
I'd like to
family?
respond after the defense says that.
All right, we'll do that. All right, Mr. Beasley, I'm a little bit puzzled about what we're doing here today when there was a bond hearing 2 weeks ago and another circuit court judge continued that bond hearing pending on the pending receipt, the court receiving and the state receiving results of blood test or blood work. It seems that I'm bound by that circuit judge's order, and that I'm just concerned procedurally, what are we doing here today when that part of his order has not been met?
Well, Judge, I submit to you that if we'd have had these medical records, the judge would have made a ruling that day. We didn't have those medical records. The medical records indicate some THC in his blood or urine, because we got blood and urine results. And that would verify what the state's alleging, that he hit a vape pen. So I don't understand how that is going to make a difference. I mean, it doesn't indicate alcohol in his system. And I know Judge Miller very well, and he would have definitely set a bond if I'd had these medical records. He wouldn't have just been relying on the tox report.
My question is for you as an officer of the court, what
Yes.
did Judge Miller order? What was the basis of his continuance, and what did he order as part of what he did that day to be done before bond could be reviewed by another circuit court judge?
He did say-
Simply is, are we there, or is that where we are today, or are we still waiting on Judge Miller's order to be complied with?
So technically, Judge, he did ask for the tox report because we didn't have the medical records at the time. But Judge, and just so the court's well aware, SLED has been backed up anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And I've already given, if I had the blood and the urine results, which I did provide the court, we would have gotten a bond. The judge said he didn't have jurisdiction, after court, and so that's why he didn't rule on it from when I sent him the medical records. I just don't see.
I still answer my question simply is, what did he order, and has everything that he ordered been complied with for Judge Hall to then hear the motion in full?
And I don't know if he gave a formal order. He said continued it until we get the results from his blood, is what he said.
All right. Do we have results from his blood?
I have provided the court with results from the same nurse that drew for SLED, drew for his medical records, and only thing in there is some traces of THC, Your Honor.
All right, Solicitor, let me hear you on that particular, and to answer that question. All right, so are there blood results, Mr. Beasley?
Yes, Your Honor. I provided the court with blood results and urine results.
Well, the solicitor says he doesn't have any blood results.
Thing he doesn't understand, I've done is that the blood results he's talking about, effort, did not check for the drugs. So I'll be glad to go through that.
So what we have is when we say blood result, it is for BA content or blood alcohol content, and not a full blood report about what else may or may not have been in his blood at the time of the accident. Is that where we are? All right, we do not have that information. Is that right, Mr. Beasley?
I'm not hearing Mr. Barnett on.
What he has told the court is that the blood results are for what, and I've done felony DUIs as well, are the BA results or the blood alcohol content, but he does not have a full toxicology report on ruling out whether other chemicals were in his blood. In other words, all we have is a BA blood report. That's what he's telling the court.
And yeah, and there's a urine test which also indicates the THC, no alcohol.
All right.
I,
Okay, well, I'm not going to hear any more on it because I don't believe that Judge Miller, whether he had and certainly doesn't have a formal written order, but what's been conveyed to me by both of you as officer of the court, what he did order, that portion of his order as a circuit court judge has not been met. There is no complete blood toxicology report. That has not been presented to the court today. The hearing was in front of Judge Miller, I guess, 2 weeks ago? And there has not been a change in circumstances since 2 weeks ago for this court to review what Judge Miller did. So I'm going to abide by Judge Miller's order, and you can come back whenever all that information has been provided, and you can comply with Judge Miller's order. Yes.
Your Honor, so I did file an emergency bond hearing, and that was based on a couple of things. One, that I was able to get the medical records to Judge Miller, but then also that Caleb is a minor and he's being given Prozac, and the jail was trying to give him more Prozac, but he's still having the same symptoms that are described at the scene of this accident: blacking out, dizziness, and his family, I mean, they're obviously worried, and he's not getting the proper care in the jail. And you know, so we tried to go back in front of Judge Miller. He just said he didn't have jurisdiction. You know, these are little details when there's nothing else that it could be any different. Even if the blood shows that he has some kind of THC or other kind of drug in there, this is no different from any other case that's been in this county before this court on a 17-year-old with a BA of 0.18 where they've given bonds. I just don't understand, you know, judges, this is not fair to Mr. Kennedy. We're just falling between these cracks, and I just don't know how to get, because when I'm relying on the state to do something and they're not prepared to do it, how long is this going to go on where this 17-year-old doesn't get a bond? I mean, this could be 6 months from now. I just don't know what to do, Judge.
Well, I think where this court is that we're 2 weeks from he's been in jail for a month. We're 2 weeks from when he appeared, or when you appeared in front of a circuit judge. That judge certainly had jurisdiction at that point in time, and he ordered conditions to be met before bond would be reconsidered. And so 2 weeks later, which is not a long period of time in the criminal justice system, those conditions have not been met. Certainly, you know, at least as far as this court's concerned, I'm not comfortable hearing in essence, having a bond hearing where exactly the same conditions that were present were presented to the court 2 weeks ago. Nothing has changed. Those conditions have not been met. There hadn't been a change in circumstances. So I'm not going to hear that. I'm not going to go any further with this bond hearing today. I do, or, you know, certainly I hope the state understands that how old is your client?
Your Honor, he's 17. He just turned 17 not too long ago. And he's under suicide watch, which is why he has that yellow jumpsuit on. And, you know, I thought that would be a change in circumstances, and the fact that I gave him the blood and urine results, but I guess.
Well, I think certainly the state's in a position, they understand their responsibility of inmates that they have in their detention center, and especially minors. And I hope that they do everything they can to get results. And they have ways to get results quicker than normal cases. This is not a normal case because of his age and because of his mental and emotional condition. But 2 weeks after Judge Miller has had the hearing, then I'm not going to rule on his bond until those conditions have been met. So that-
Judge, and
Yeah.
Judge, just to address his mental situation, is it possible to order him to be evaluated at Morris Village or something? I mean, it truly is. There's some issues going on down there because he's still suffering from the same issues that were blackouts, dizziness. They're trying to up his dosage on Prozac. And is there any? I mean, that I think you can order that.
Well, I'm not sure how it works over here in Spartanburg, but in our county, the detention center has mental health people that visit and assess people in the detention center. I would assume that would be the same thing here in Spartanburg if they deem that's appropriate that he, you know, for his protection, their protection, they generally send them to be evaluated to a local, I don't know whether it's Morris Village in York County, is simply taken to Catawba Mental Health, which is the local mental health provider. I'm not going to go get into that today. I think that goes beyond where we are with this hearing. You can work that out with the solicitor. All right, that concludes this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Your Honor.